Now that we've configured CS Control inside of the SoundFlow editor, what we're going to do now is we're going to configure our MIDI controller inside of CS Control itself. This is the last step before we get to the good stuff. So let's open up the application using the keyboard shortcut that we assigned in the previous video, which is Control X. We get a window and a dialog that tells us that we haven't configured our controller yet, which is what we're about to do. And this is pretty self-explanatory. We're going to assign the number of knobs and buttons that we have and assign CC numbers to those knobs. My controller has 16 knobs and buttons, but I am only going to be using the first 12 because I use the bottom 4 for another application. And the first thing we'll do is tell CS Control how many knobs and buttons we have. What we'll do is we'll click on the number of controller knobs and enter in 12. We have 12 buttons as well, so we'll click there and enter in 12. And as you can see, these have no default assignments on them whatsoever, but we're going to change all of that. So how do we assign CCs? It's pretty simple. You double click on our first knob and we get the assignment panel. And the assignment panel is pretty self-explanatory. We are going to auto-detect incoming CCs. So as I turn these knobs, you can see that the CC input number changes. And so we're going to assign knob number 1 by turning knob number 1. And we're also going to select cascade CCs. And what that will do is every subsequent knob will be assigned a value of 1 higher than the previous one. And that'll make sense in just a second. So I'm going to hit set. And as you can see, now we've done 1 through 12. If I click on the first knob again, and let's say I just turn knob and assign CC8 and have cascade CCs on, and I hit set, we start with 8 and we go up to 19. So we'll go back to 1, and now we have 1 through 12. And we can do the same thing again with the buttons. We'll double click on the first button, and you'll notice here that we have this little bit of text that says all buttons are set to on off. Now what's happening here is that there are 2 types of CC buttons on MIDI controllers. There are toggles and on off. On-off buttons are very much like MIDI keyboards. When you press down, the CC value is 127. When you release, it sends out a value of 0. Toggle buttons work the other way. When you press down and release, it sends out 0. When you press down and release again, it sends out 127. CS Control will automatically detect what kind of buttons you are using. The only requirement is that every button is of the same type. They all have to be on-off or they all have to be toggle. So CS Control has detected on-off. We're going to hit set, and we have 65 through 76. Now the one last thing I have to do for my controller is that knob number 7 on my controller is set for 119 because I'm weird, and we're going to set that and reassign this. And we're going to hit save. And that's pretty much it. We have configured our controller. A couple of other things we might want to take a look at here is that we have this button here that says invert knob direction. Some controllers don't send out MIDI the same way. And when you go to assign a parameter to a plugin on a knob and you'll turn it and it works backwards, click invert knob direction and that'll take care of everything. The last thing down here is that you can import and export configurations if you like. So if you use different controllers or you go to different studios with different controllers, you'll be able to save and load different configurations. And that is the end of configuring CS Control with your MIDI controller. In the next video, we get to the good stuff, which is mapping and controlling plugins.